The crystal chandelier cast perfect light across the ballroom as my sister Julia stood at the head table, champagne flute raised. Her designer wedding dress catching every sparkle. 200 of the city's most influential people sat in rapt attention waiting for her maid of honor speech about me. Her older sister, Emma. The family disappointment. I adjusted my simple black dress bought off the rack, not custom-made like everyone else's attire, and tried to ignore the pitying glances from relatives who thought they were being subtle. Aunt Margaret whispered something to Uncle Charles behind her menu. Cousin David's wife kept looking between Julia and me with barely concealed amusement. They all knew what was coming. Julia had been building up to this moment for weeks, practicing her loving but honest speech about her struggling older sister who just couldn't seem to get her life together. If they only knew. I checked my phone discreetly. 8:47 p.m. The news embargo would lift at 9 p.m. sharp. 13 more minutes of playing the role of family failure. 13 more minutes before everything changed. Before I talk about my beautiful new husband, Marcus, Julia began, her voice carrying perfectly across the ballroom. I want to say something about family. About the lessons we learn from each other. Here it comes, I thought. Taking a sip of the champagne I could actually afford but pretended to savor like it was a rare treat. Marcus Pemberton. I sat beside her looking every inch the successful investment banker he was. Old money, old family, old connections. Everything my parents had dreamed of for their daughters, everything they thought I'd never achieve. My sister Emma is here tonight, Julia continued, turning to smile at me with practiced sisterly affection. And I've learned so much from watching her journey. The room's attention shifted to me. I smiled back, playing my part perfectly. The supportive older sister who'd never quite figured out how to succeed. Emma has taught me that sometimes we have to try many different paths before we find our way. She's worked so many different jobs, lived in so many tiny apartments, struggled with so many failed business ventures. Murmurs of sympathetic understanding rippled through the crowd. Poor Emma, still trying to find herself at 32. She's currently working as a freelance consultant, Julia said, making it sound like a euphemism for unemployed. Living in that cozy little studio downtown, driving her reliable old Honda, still believing that someday she'll make it big with one of her startup ideas. More sympathetic nods. Uncle Charles actually shook his head sadly. What they didn't know was that my cozy little studio was actually a penthouse I owned in the building. I'd purchased through a shell company. That my reliable old Honda was a deliberate choice to maintain my cover, while my actual car collection remained in a private garage across town. That my failed startup ideas had been strategically positioned acquisitions building towards something much bigger. But you know what I've learned from Emma? Julia's voice grew stronger, more confident. I've learned what not to do. I've learned the importance of realistic goals, of practical choices, of not chasing impossible dreams. The room was eating it up. Here was beautiful, successful Julia, married to the perfect man, sharing wisdom learned from her cautionary tale of a sister. Emma, I hope that being here tonight, seeing what real success looks like, what a stable relationship built on shared values and practical foundations can achieve, will inspire you to finally let go of those fantasies and embrace reality. She raised her champagne flute higher. To my sister Emma, who never learned success. Maybe marriage will teach her what she couldn't learn on her own. The crowd began to raise their glasses, ready to toast my enlightenment. I raised mine as well, smile perfectly in place. But then something happened that Julia hadn't planned for. The large television screens throughout the ballroom, usually showing a slideshow of wedding photos, suddenly flickered. The hotel's automated newsfeed system, programmed to interrupt for breaking news, had been triggered. Breaking any of US. The anchor announced, her voice cutting through the ballroom chatter. We interrupt with a developing story. Local woman becomes youngest billionaire in state history. Julia's champagne flute froze halfway to her lips. The room fell silent as 200 heads turned toward the screens. Emma Rodriguez, 32 of downtown Chicago, has been revealed as the anonymous founder and CEO of Quantum Dynamics, the artificial intelligence company that was just acquired by tech giant Meridian Corp for $4.7 billion. My photo filled the screens. Not the casual selfie from my social media, but a professional headshot I had taken months ago for the Forbes article that would run tomorrow. Rodriguez secretly built the company over the past 5 years while maintaining a low public profile. Sources close to the deal say she personally will net approximately $3.2 billion from the acquisition, making her the youngest female billionaire in state history. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. I could hear the air conditioning humming, the distant sound of kitchen staff cleaning up dinner service, someone's jewelry tinkling as they turned to stare at me. Julia's mouth hung open. Marcus looked like he'd been slapped. My parents, seated at the family table, appeared to be having trouble breathing. Quantum dynamics revolutionized machine learning algorithms for financial modeling, the news anchor continued. The company's AI systems are currently used by major banks and investment firms worldwide, including, the list included Marcus's own firm, Temperton and Associates. I watched the color drain from his face as he realized his company's most valuable technological asset had been created by his new sister-in-law. The one that all been pity. Rodriguez declined to comment for this story, but sources say she plans to use her newfound wealth to expand into aerospace technology and renewable energy systems. The news report ended, returning to the wedding slideshow. But no one was looking at pictures of Julia and Marcus anymore. 200 pairs of eyes were fixed on me. I stood slowly, smoothing my simple black dress. The same dress that now looked understated rather than budget-conscious. "Well," I said, my voice carrying easily in the stunned silence. "I suppose the cat's out of the bag." Julia finally found her voice. "Emma, this is how long have you 5 years?" I replied calmly. "Since right after you told me at Christmas that I needed to get serious about my life and stop embarrassing the family with my silly computer hobby." I turned to address the room, all those influential people who'd spent the evening pitying me. "I want to thank my sister for her touching speech. She's absolutely right that I've learned a lot from watching family dynamics. I've learned the value of staying quiet while you're building something. I've learned that people judge success by appearances rather than substance. And I've learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding." Marcus stood up shakily. "Emma, if I said anything tonight that seemed you didn't say anything tonight, Marcus. But last month when you told your golf partners that Julia was lucky to have one successful sister to balance out the failure, that was illuminating." His face went white. Apparently, he'd forgotten about that conversation at the country club, not knowing I'd been there having lunch with a potential investor. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the messages that had been flooding in since the news broke. 47 interview requests, 12 investment proposals, and 1 invitation to speak at the World Economic Forum. Not bad for a Friday night. Julia sank back into her chair, her carefully planned moment of sisterly condescension crumbling around her. "The acquisition closes Monday morning." I continued. "Meridian wants to keep Quantum Dynamics as an independent subsidiary with me remaining as CEO. I'll be announcing my next venture shortly after." I turned back to Julia, whose perfect wedding makeup couldn't hide her shock. "You mentioned that seeing real success might inspire me. You're absolutely right. Seeing how obsessed this family is with appearances over substance inspired me to build something real. Something that couldn't be dismissed or explained away." My phone buzzed. A text from my assistant. "Forbes wants to move the interview to tomorrow morning. Cover story confirmed for Monday issue." "I should probably go," I said, gathering my small purse. "I have an early meeting with Forbes tomorrow." Something about a cover story. I leaned down to kiss Julia's cheek, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Congratulations on your marriage, sis. I hope Marcus appreciates that he just married into a billionaire family. Though technically, through me, not you." As I walked through the ballroom toward the exit, the silence followed me. 200 people who'd spent the evening looking down on me now watching the youngest billionaire in state history leave their party. At the door, I turned back one last time. The wedding photographer was frantically adjusting his camera, probably realizing he just documented one of the most expensive humiliations in social history. "Oh, and Julia?" I called across the room. "That cozy little studio you mentioned? I own the building. All 47 floors. Consider it a wedding gift to keep thinking about realistic goals versus impossible dreams." The next morning, I sat in my actual office on the 45th floor of Meridian Tower, reviewing the Forbes interview questions while my assistant brought me coffee. The same brand I'd been drinking for years, back when everyone thought I couldn't afford better. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since the news broke. Family members, old friends, business acquaintances, all suddenly very interested in reconnecting. I ignored most of them, but one message made me smile. It was from Dr. Sarah Kim, my computer science professor from college. The one who'd encouraged me to pursue AI research when everyone else thought it was too theoretical. "Saw the news. Remember when you asked if anyone would ever take your impossible ideas seriously? I think you have your answer. Proud of you. Dr. Kim. I was crafting my response when my assistant knocked. Miss Rodriguez? There's a Julia Pemberton here to see you. Says she's your sister. I checked my watch. 10:30 a.m. Julia had probably spent the night figuring out how to spin this, how to position herself as the supportive sister who always believed in me. Send her in. Julia entered looking perfectly put together despite the previous night's drama. Her designer outfit was understated but clearly expensive. Her makeup flawless. Her smile carefully practiced. Emma? I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. The same desk where I'd made the decisions that built a billion-dollar company while my family thought I was struggling. Just reviewing some acquisition proposals. What can I do for you? She sat down carefully clutching her purse like a shield. I wanted to apologize for last night. The speech was supposed to be motivational, not hurtful. I studied her face looking for genuine regret behind the polished exterior. Motivational? I thought if I showed you what stability looked like, what conventional success could achieve, it might inspire you to try a more traditional path. There it was. Even now, even after everything, she still thought she was the successful one offering guidance to her struggling sister. Julia, let me ask you something. What do you think Marcus makes at Pemberton and Associates? She straightened proudly. He's one of their top earners. Nearly $500,000 last year. I pulled up a document on my computer screen. Pemberton and Associates paid Quantum Dynamics $847 million in licensing fees over the past 3 years. Essentially, Marcus's entire firm runs on technology I created. Her smile flickered slightly. Your wedding last night cost approximately $300,000. Marcus told the golf club it was his gift to you. Proof of his success. What he didn't mention is that the catering company, the venue, and the florist are all subsidiaries of companies I own through various investment vehicles. Now her smile was definitely wavering. So when you stood up last night to teach me about real success, you were essentially using my money to finance a lecture about how I needed to be more like you. Julia's perfectly composed facade finally cracked. Emma, I didn't know. How could I have known? You couldn't have known because you never asked. In 5 years, you never once asked what I was actually working on. You saw the small apartment and old car, and decided you knew everything about my situation. I stood up, walking to the window that offered a panoramic view of the city. Half the buildings visible from here contain my technology. But that's not why I'm upset, Julia. I'm upset because you used your wedding, what should have been the happiest day of your life, to publicly humiliate someone you claim to love. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. I was jealous. I turned back to her. Jealous? Of what? Of your freedom. Of your willingness to take risks. I've done everything exactly the way we were taught. Good grades, right college, suitable job, proper marriage. I followed every rule, met every expectation. She looked down at her hands. And you just ignored all of it. Walked away from the plan and built something extraordinary. For the first time since she'd entered my office, Julia sounded like my actual sister instead of a carefully crafted social persona. I spent years watching you struggle or thinking you were struggling and telling myself that my way was better, safer, more realistic. She looked up, meeting my eyes. I was wrong. I sat back down, studying her face. Behind the makeup and designer clothes, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Genuine vulnerability. Julia, you're not wrong about stability having value. You're not wrong about the importance of practical planning, but you were wrong about thinking success only looks one way. My phone buzzed with another message. The aerospace development team wanted to schedule Monday's strategy meeting. I'm building something new now. Quantum aerospace. We're going to revolutionize satellite technology and space-based manufacturing. Her eyes widened slightly. Space manufacturing? I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd given her in years. Want to hear about it? For the next hour, I explained my vision for orbital manufacturing platforms, for artificial intelligence systems that could operate in zero gravity, for technology that could change how humanity approached space exploration. Julia listened intently, asking surprisingly insightful questions about market applications and technological challenges. You know, she said finally, I have contacts in the aerospace industry through Marcus's firm. Defense contractors, NASA suppliers. If you're serious about this, are you offering to help? She hesitated, then nodded. If you'll let me. I know I don't deserve it after last night. But I'd like to try being the sister who supports your impossible dreams instead of the one who tries to talk you out of them. I considered her offer, thinking about forgiveness and family, and the difference between holding grudges and setting boundaries. There might be a place for you in quantum aerospace, I said carefully, but not because you're my sister, because you have skills I need: business development, relationship management, strategic partnerships. Her face lit up. You mean it? I mean it. But Julia, if you take this position, you work for me. Not with me. For me. You follow my vision, my timeline, my standards. And you never, ever use family relationships to undermine business decisions. She nodded eagerly. I understand. And one more thing. The next time you want to give a speech about success and failure, maybe make sure you actually know which one you're talking about. She laughed. A real laugh this time. Deal. As she left my office to consider my offer, I reflected on the strange turns life could take. 24 hours ago, I was the family disappointment. Today, I was the youngest billionaire in state history, offering my sister a job. My phone rang. Forbes. Ready for the cover story interview. Miss Rodriguez, congratulations on your success. Our readers are fascinated by your story. Building $1 billion company in secret, while your own family thought you were struggling. How did you manage it? I leaned back in my chair, looking out over the city where I'd quietly built an empire. Simple, I said. I learned that the success isn't about proving anything to anyone else. It's about building something that matters, regardless of whether people understand it or not. And what's next for Emma Rodriguez? I smiled, thinking about orbital manufacturing platforms and the sister who might help me build them. The sky's not the limit anymore, I replied. It's just the beginning. The Forbes cover ran the following Monday with the headline "The Billionaire Next Door: How Emma Rodriguez Built an AI Empire in Plain Sight." The article detailed my 5-year journey from dismissed family member to tech industry leader. But the real story wasn't in the magazine. It was in the text message I received that afternoon from Julia. First day at Quantum Aerospace tomorrow. Thank you for the second chance. Let's build something impossible together. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's giving people the opportunity to become better than they were when they underestimated you. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they take it.